Welcome to Cluster API Provider AWS office hours on Monday, the 22nd of March, 2021. A reminder that we abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct, so that basically means be nice to each other. I've just shared the meeting notes in the chat window, so if you could add yourself as attending, and also if you have any topics for discussion, if you can add them there as well. And then if you want to talk during the meeting, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and then we can discuss. Cool. Cool. So there's a few new people actually that I've seen just join in today. So if you want to introduce yourself, please feel free to unmute yourself and say hi. I'll give you a few minutes to do that.
Hey, I guess I don't know. In my Zoom, I'm at the top left corner, so I'll just go first. Daniel Pavetsky. I worked on Cluster API, and yeah, I've been using the AWS provider. It's great. Thank you for all your hard work. It's a pleasure to use. I'm trying to contribute in small places where I can. So yeah, I've got something I just want to discuss. So I'm here today.
Cool. Well, welcome. Would anyone else like to say hello?
Yes, I am a new face. I will also say hello. My name is Ashish. I work at VMware. I was part of the Cluster API AWS provider pre-V1 Alpha 1 timeframe. After a brief break, I am back looking to contribute more.
Cool. Okay, so shall we move on to the PSAs? So the first item is Sedef is now a maintainer. So the change has, the PR has gone through. So congratulations, Sedef. That's great. So the next PSA is actually something that I've worked on, and there's a behavioral change in the subnet assignments for both flavors of the machine pools. So this really has essentially we were ignoring some of the failure domains on the machine pool, but then we've also tightened up on some of the logic and the precedence of how a machine pool is assigned to a subnet. But that will be in the release notes of the next release. So moving on to the action items. Well, I'm the first one. So I haven't actually looked at the EKS end-to-end tests since the last meeting. I've raised some more issues to add more tests, but I actually haven't fixed any of the flakes to the existing tests. And then the next one is also me, which is we took an action item to do some analysis between the items on, or the specs of the AWS machine and what we need for launch templates, because how we handle launch templates currently is not ideal, and we're getting more and more issues. So this is partially done. I haven't fully completed it, so if anyone's interested in this, I'll put the HackMD link in here, and you can just have a read as well. So the third one was me as well. So I've written an ADR for usage of enums. Is this not the right meeting notes?
I'm looking at the stale doc.
Let me just so I can also, I'll just copy the latest link. So let's just put it in there.
Oh, thank you.
And what I should also be doing as well is also sharing the window. That would be helpful. So, so where were we? Yeah, so the ADL for the usage of enums is done. I just need to push that, so I'll do that probably in the morning now. So, Sedef was you had the next action item.
Yes. So the previous actually we made a fix for the conformance test. We were using Bazel build before, but it didn't fix the problem. Then I think there was a new Kubernetes 1.21 release. Now conformance tests are passing.
Brilliant. So moving on to the discussion items. So I added the first one, which was really about when we plan to do the 0.65 release. Just wondering if there's any thoughts on that. Whether that's this week or next week or longer term. Go for it, Nadir.
Yeah, let's make a concerted push to get the PRs in for Ignition. I think there was one for EKS and multi-tenancy. And then I think we're good to go. Oh, maybe it might be worth putting up the milestone, just check the other things that we had.
Yep, cool, I can do that, yep. Yeah, so I added some as well, to be honest. So yes, there's quite a lot in there, isn't there?
Should we go through and chuck some out if we?
Yep. Yeah.
Or maybe, or at least maybe ones which don't have PRs. Yeah. So multi-tenancy, we just need to review the PR. It's ready, so I think we should get that in.
Yeah. Cool.
Tag elastic IPs on creation can probably punt. It's just an optimization. There's new EC2 API base. It's not really necessary.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that could be moved to 0.7. Black Car Linux PRs are in. We just need to review that. I think Kinvoke is keen that we have it supported and we want to have Alpha 3, and I agree. So let's get that reviewed and in, I think.
The rate limiters seems full.
I will do that.
Okay. Certificates and API loads. I think that's a bug we need to fix, isn't it? Yeah, if there's a couple of easy ones, I'll try and get them done this week, basically, alongside all the reviews, just so that we're ready to go. Maybe at the end of the week, we get CI running over the weekend, and then we can do a release on Monday. So leave that in. If we don't make it, fine. But yeah, it's an easy fix, that one.
So that was, so we got this
Controller.
one here.
Can't remember that one.
Yeah.
Punt this, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
We're going to change the milestone on it.
Yeah. Up to 0.70.
Yeah.
said the same for the tag IP creation, didn't we?
Oh, my video's frozen. Sorry, I'm on bad internet connection. Can't see it.
Sorry, that was that one. So let me. So the next one was add Cappy quick start spec test as PR blocking end-to-end test.
I already have a PR for it. I didn't actually refer to this issue, so there's an open PR.
Cool, that's good to go then. The Fargate EKS Fargate profiles, yeah, that's good to go. Just made some changes today, so we should be able to get that in. So ignition, bootstrap, yeah, should get that in as well. There's an end-to-end test one, which is a follow-up to just basically add Fargate profile end-to-end tests. So I'll get that in by the end of the week. And then, yeah, so this is it's another one I've raised where the managed machine pool, if someone goes into the AWS console and changes the min or the max, the controller doesn't reconcile back that node group. So we can probably put that into the next milestone. I don't know what people think. Yeah. Not that many people using the managed machine pools, to be honest, but I'll try and get it done. I think it's maybe the best way to do it this week. Cool. So next one, next item for discussion is Joel's.
So I was talking to some people from AWS recently about spot instances, and every time I speak to people about spot instances, they're always like, it's useless if you can't do mixed instances. So if you're not familiar, there's lots of stuff on Amazon where you can say, okay, I want this particular instance type, but if that one's not available for spot, then use these other types of instances. Now, I wasn't aware that recently there's this EC2 fleet concept, which is not to be confused with EC2 spot fleet, because apparently they're different things. An EC2 fleet allows you to request a instant fleet of, some determinate capacity, and you can use spot instances in there. But what that can also do is allow you to do multiple launch templates or override the launch template. So speaking to them, we were talking through the sort of requirements for like individual machines and spot instances, and how like at the moment we use run instances and it gives us back an immediate answer, yes or no, you can or can't have the spot instances at this point. They were suggesting that we can basically replace run instances with this EC2 fleet for spot instances, and then that would give users the ability to specify, if I can't have an R4 large, then okay, I'll have an X large instead, or something like that. Now, the problem I see with this is that it relies on launch templates, and when you're using individual machines, you don't really have any way to lifecycle those at the moment in Cluster API that I'm aware of, at least. But I think launch templates are used for the machine pool implementation, maybe. So I want to look into this not only for OpenShift, but also for Cluster API's implementation to try and sort of, see what we can do, and wondered whether anyone had any thoughts about how we could leverage launch templates here and do this, and what sort of life cycling we can do based on what we already have for the machine pool stuff.
Yeah, I guess from my side, in the machine pools, we don't handle launch templates very well. In all honesty, we create a default one, but we don't, especially in the managed machine pools, we don't expose the launch template at all, and that's actually causing problems for users that say you want to change the security groups associated with remote access. You just can't do it without that. So I think there's a few more issues as well, sort of along those lines, that are to do with us basically not handling launch templates well. And I see Dane, you've got your hand raised as well.
Yes, sorry, I was having a hard time finding my mute button there. This is a timely conversation because we were working on some improvements on the machine pool side for Spot and mixed instance types. Auto scaling groups got they got this new feature, I believe it was in December, called a capacity rebalance, which is really handy for this kind of thing because it allows the auto scaling group to preemptively create new instances of either a different type or in a different availability zone when Amazon detects that capacity will soon be constrained for the type in the zone that you are on. So it's just one extra field in the API. So we're testing that right now locally, and then we were going to PR up that feature. Trying to think. A lot of our stuff though is around machine pools and not around obviously the machine deployments and the run instances thing. So that's an interesting conversation. I'd be interested to hear more on that side. And lastly, the launch templates. It's a difficult problem because we could break it out like we've kind of been talking about and have a separate API construct for the launch template and then make some kind of a reference like we've done with other objects. At the moment, the machine pool exposes most, but not all fields of the launch template, and then just handles the life cycle of those itself. If the fields are mutable in cluster API, so if we modify it, then it creates a new launch template version for you and acts more like an update mechanism as opposed to create new and change reference. That has some pros and cons. It's effectively an abstraction over AWS instead of a representation of AWS's construct. And I could definitely see some benefits to having the launch template be its own type.
So that's kind of what I was wondering, whether there'd been any discussion about having launch templates as their own type. So one of the things I was on a call with some of the PMs at AWS around the different stuff, because I sort of gave some feedback that it'd be much easier for us if the EC2 Fleet EC2 Fleet API could just accept like the launch template kind of in line, like you do chuck everything in for run instances. And we were discussing the limits and stuff. So we were talking about how could we leverage this if like every machine created its own launch template, and how would the limits work for that? And they were saying there's something like a 10,000 launch template limit, or something like that soon is going to be the case anyway. So yeah, there was a lot of discussion about limits and whether we could just create a launch template for every machine. And I'm not familiar enough with AWS to know whether we can like create that and then delete it as soon as the machine's launched or things like that. So if there's interest for running Spot instances with individual machines through machine deployments with like this, then I'll try and do some more research into it and come up with something. I guess for users of cluster API who can use machine pool, I think it's a lot easier to implement in machine pool, if I understood correctly at least. So it might just be a case that we want to say as a community, like, if you want mixed instances, use machine pool. But yeah, I don't know who would make that decision.
Another idea that just popped to mind is the similarity to AWS machine template and launch template is probably very high. I don't know if it's similar enough that it could just be a flag in the AWS machine template, that it could say create a launch template versus do nothing and just be a template for the run instances call. Maybe that's a bit too awkward. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at all the fields and compared them, but that might be something to at least look at.
that is kind of one of the ideas I was going down as well, whether you'd have like a launch template CR that referenced a machine template and generated the launch template from that, and then in the status had the reference to it, then you'd reference the launch template. It gets a bit convoluted, I think, but you'd reference the launch template, which the machine would then create from that. It's a bit weird, but I did go down that same sort of thought path.
Cool. Is it Fake? Do you want to speak?
Yeah. Hey, my name is Spike. I'm a colleague of Daniel Lipowetsky and Joe Julian at Day2IQ. I'm new to this whole Kappa thing, but I've worked with Spot instances in the past and supporting Spot instances for our Kubernetes distribution. I just have a question. It seems like we're focusing a lot on the machine lifecycle portion of this, and I'm a little bit curious as to if we're going to be supporting I'm not really seeing how we're going to be supporting like the different like types within the fleet, like right, the way that we've implemented it in Day2IQ is kind of like just one Spot instance, and that doesn't really like work out. So that speaks to the fact that was in the first bullet point, like if you can't get this one, try the other one. And I'm curious to hear folks kind of like opinions on how that should be implemented, because like a lot of the time, like that's usually what people are, that's like the best way of getting Spot implemented, and maybe that's, to me, that's like the bigger problem than necessarily having them sharing like the machine lifecycle or the machine configuration stuff. And I don't know if that would require like a new API type or something like that, but I think that's like the biggest problem. Thanks.
So I think, yeah, you've kind of hit the nail on the head there with the problem, but is, like, it's not very useful if you've only got that one. So like, I know a lot of OpenShift customers are running Spot.io underneath so that they can sort of hack their way around this. But that only works for like some offerings. So like there's some Red Hat hosted offerings where you don't get access to configure that, for instance. So that's where this kind of request has come from, because like originally it was like, yeah, okay, we'll implement slot support, but like we're going to do this just for single machines, and it'd be single type. And if you can't get that, have multiple machine sets, have the cluster autoscaler, you can sort of work around it in a way, but it doesn't work perfectly, right? And so that's why I think this is important. And if it's a case of it's too difficult to make this work for individual machines and follow the machine deployment style, and we have to push people towards machine pool, then that's something we could do. But at the moment, OpenShift doesn't have machine pool. So like for me, I'm still a little bit focused on the single instance types at the moment.
So yeah, how do you think we should proceed? Do we need to come up with a proposal for how to handle launch templates just generally in Kappa, taking into account all the different use cases and the issues that we're currently seeing?
Yeah, I certainly think that would be useful. But I see Dane's got his hand up, so I don't know if you want to let him speak.
Yeah, go for it, Dane.
Yeah, I would definitely be interested in the discussion around standardizing our use of launch templates. And I have my team's opinions on how we like to run Spot. We definitely prefer using the machine pools construct, because then we can take advantage of multi-AZ ASGs, along with some constraints around, okay, you can't use EBS volumes if you're in here, and you can't use inter-AZ pod anti-affinity and things like that. And that has been, so far in our early testing, we're very early in that, but it looks very promising. and ends up giving an experience very similar to spot.io with the capacity rebalanced and the avoiding of unnecessary interruptions and capacity optimized allocations, things that would be they'd be very difficult, I think, in machine deployments, because a lot of that implementation is kind of, behind the black box of the auto scaling group, at least as far as I can tell. But that said, I haven't dug into that EC2 fleet thing, so maybe that does a similar logic behind the covers. But yeah, I think it definitely warrants some more discussion to see the best way. So far, the machine pools has worked really well for us, and we're interested in investing some more time, I think in a couple months here, to try to help stabilize that API and help work to graduate it out of experimental.
Thanks, Dane. Just to round off my thoughts, if I may, yeah, I think ideally we see some sort of like, standardized launch template sharing thing across Kappa. That would be great for me. I probably don't have much time to work on this for the next couple of months. So this is probably going to be like a sort of May, June kind of time that we're looking into this. But yeah, like anything I can help in the meantime, I'll try and do. If there's anything that happens before then, if not, then I'll try and spearhead the effort a little bit later in the year.
Well, I'll take an action item then to see how we proceed with that, and then we can either discuss it in Slack or Rain. If someone wants to do it sooner, then we can get the proposal going sooner. But yeah, I'll take that as an action item. So the next topic for discussion is from Daniel.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about this SSH key validation fix. Does it's in master? Does it need to be backported to release 06? It's something that we'd really like to have. We're using, we're using the latest release, which is 06. So, but I don't know what needs to be done to get it in there.
Yeah, so if it's in master, so the next release will be 065. So that'll be pushed into the release 06.
Okay.
Branch as part of this.
I saw release 07, so I wasn't. I saw that branch, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that was because basically we were making some of the API changes ahead of time on a separate branch.
Okay, thank you. And the next thing is there's just a small refactor. Just kind of I wanted to add, like, this is kind of a bike shedding question. There's validation that happens for the SSH key name in both AWS machine and AWS cluster. There used to be like two groups of tests. I grouped together, PRs there, but I was kind of wondering at the time, like, I could test the sort of the common function that gets called, right? Which would be a unit test, but I decided to leave it as a integration test in the sense that the test exercises the actual validation of an AWS machine and an AWS cluster, and then so other things happen along with the SSH key name validation. And any opinions on which should happen? I mean, in theory, I guess you can even have both, but it seemed like it would be good to, since the input that matters is the cluster and the machine objects, and you could test the SSH validation as a unit test, but then what if you accidentally somebody removes the call from the webhook to actually test that, then you would miss that. So anyway, any opinions?
Let's give time to see if anyone else has an opinion. Just personally, I would always test it in the like you say, in the context of the cluster. That's just the way that I do it. I don't think that's just a personal opinion. So I don't know if anyone else has any views on that.
You already have an open PR for it, right, Daniel?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so yeah, I can try to like review it on the PR.
Oh, thanks. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Brilliant. And Sadef, you got the next point of discussion.
Yes. So since we are getting ready to open main branch for V1 Alpha 4 development, I did some cleanup in our E2E test, divided the test as main branch and V06 branch. This is similar to what Core Cluster API and CapZ is doing, but we may want to wait until we open the main branch to V1 Alpha 4 changes. And currently there are some typos, probably the tests are failing in the PR, but I'm gonna fix that. But I will put a hold on it until we merge V1 Alpha 4 into the main branch. Just a heads up.
So that's the end of the list of discussions. Has anyone else got anything else they'd like to discuss? Going once, going twice. No, cool. Well, we'll call the meeting to a close then. Thanks everyone for your time, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.